what permaculture design is about. Hi everyone, it's Eva from Grandvisio. We help people manage their land more efficiently, and we also design outside spaces in accordance with permaculture principles. And I'm really excited that today's video is precisely about that. And I think it will be perfect for those interested in hiring a permaculture designer consultant, just to get to know the benefits. And I also think it will be great for people interested in taking a permaculture designer's course. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's consider the most important information first: water flows. This animation shows you how the water flows from the higher altitudes to the bottom of the valley. So as you can see, the water quickly finds its way down. So in many cases on our planet, the sweet water is lost because it joins the river and flows to the sea. However, our job as permaculture designers is to slow the water down and keep it in the landscape for longer. For example, we can direct the water where we want it to be, and to show you how and give you a snapshot of the design process, we look into a sample area, and I will show you how I would design it according to permaculture principles in reference to very basic set of information. It's a little disclaimer here: it's not possible to give you an overview of all considerations of a design process, as it is quite complex, but I think this video is perfect to give you a quick overview of possible design outcomes. Right, so we can see the boundary of area that we'll be designing. The very first consideration of the design process is client's requirements. In this case, the client inherited property, and in the past it was used to cultivate grains. However, the client wants to grow fruit trees. They also own a separate land where they live, but they don't have a space to grow timber, wood species or firewood species, and they also want to graze sheep on land. Obviously, the more information we get from the client, the better, but in this case, it's sufficient. We'll also need information about the climate, the soil, any energies flowing into the property, for example, winds, orientation of the land, and so on. So typically, we'd send a form to the client to complete, where we can get all the information necessary to start our work. So in this case, the land is in Mediterranean climate, so we have wet winters and dry summers. We are dealing with clay soil here, and all the client knows about the weather conditions is that from the northeast, we've got cold winter winds. If the client is not sure about all weather conditions, we can do a search and go through online weather databases, but in this case, this is the only concerning weather event. What I noticed from the satellite image is that there is possible erosion due to water flowing from top of the peak downwards, and the soil is degraded and will need to be regenerated and hydrated in the dry season. So now that we've got basic information, we can look at the shape of the land. The white lines represent contour lines to show you elevation points, to make it easier for you to see how the land looks like in 3D. I am using Google Earth Terrain feature with exaggerated altitude view, so you can really see it's a hill. So let's move to a design process. In this case, we can see that the top of the property is in between two peaks. That means the water flows from those two peaks, and we can use it to create a so-called saddle dam. The client seems to have more control of water flows on the right peak, and the animation shows the water flow on that side only, but you get the idea. So this water that we catch in saddle dam can be used for irrigation down the slope with the use of gravity. Pretty smart, right? Okay, so what's next? We can see that on top there is less space between contour lines, in comparison to contour lines on the bottom. That means it is steeper on top in comparison to bottom part of the land. And 18-degree slopes or higher need to be covered in permanent forest to prevent erosion and help to stabilize the soil. So in this case, the slope on top is 27 degrees, and we'll plant windbreak species in the northeast corner to help stop the cold winter wind. Remember, we always plant along the contour lines. This is because the water always flows at 90-degree angle to the next contour line. So your plants would be positioned at the perfect angle to absorb the rainwater flowing down the hill. Next, to heal erosion effect, we'll install gabions to catch silt every time it significantly rains, so that the gully that was previously created with rainwater force is slowly filled up with silt and all the organic matter falling into the gully. Gabions are typically large stones that are held together with a metal mesh net. However, my partner has found out that for small gullies, rocks and gravel in between rocks is sufficient. Next, we are still left with steep slope on the left-hand side, and we will plant it with erosion-controlled trees and shrubs to help regenerate the land. Some of these species are also windbreak species, so there's sometimes an overlap, but that's okay. The trees are planted along the contour lines again, and if it's too steep to efficiently plant the trees, we can create terraces, which is something that can be done with the help of excavator machine. Next, we can place dams where we can store rainwater for irrigation. We can do that because we have a clay soil that will hold the water. In this animation, black lines represent diversion drains, which move water from one dam to the next, and orange lines represent diversion drains moving water towards the cultivated land. On the next animation, these lines will disappear, otherwise the map will get really clunky. Please note that it is not enough to just install dams and drains. The design needs to consider maximum rainfall in 24 hours in 100 years to be able to prepare the site in case such an event occurs. This means the excess water needs to be safely released from dams and other water features to prevent erosion and floods on the bottom of the valley. And this is typically done with spillways. And once we do that, we have a resilient system that also helps neighboring properties. Okay, now that we have placed our dams, we'll position timberwood species that the client wants. They are located on steeper slope in proximity to land that is flatter, that I designated to productive species. And before we go there, next to timberwood species, we've got pasture and all the different varieties of species that sheep could graze on. As you know, grass doesn't contain much nutrients, so it will be better to plant it with legumes and all variety of ground covers packed with minerals. We can plant trees that will give shade over there for our animals, and lastly we will divide the pasture into smaller sections to graze animals in shorter amount of time on each division. This will help to quicker regrow the pasture species on each lot, and before sheep will make the full rotational cycle, the first lot will be fully regrown. Then we're moving to the flatter land, but before we plant our productive trees, fruit trees, we'll position swales. A swale is a tree growing system consisting of uncompacted ditch. Trees grow on a mound which was created from excavated soil to create such a ditch. And these systems allow to absorb the water directed from the dams to very slowly release it to the landscape. That is why the bottom of the swale and the mound itself cannot be compacted. Please note that in between trees, in each part of the property, we have a variety of species, from ground covers to vines, herbs, flowers and shrubs, as we aim in our designs for maximum biodiversity. Typically, we'd aim to have 4,000 to 8,000 different species on 1 hectare. Obviously, it's difficult to achieve that just in one go, but it's best to keep adding and adding different species as we go. To regenerate the land, we would plant ground covers, fixing nitrogen from the air to the soil, and pioneer trees in the very first instance. We would be using techniques called mulching, and we'll be creating lots of compost for our species. There is not enough time to talk about this in this video, but let me know if you're interested and I will make a dedicated video about regenerating land. So that's all for a very swift overview of a permaculture design process. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions and I will happily answer them. So yeah, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video.